Polska. I'd like to first of all thank the Marshal for inviting us.
There's no microphone.
Thank you. Hopefully this is a little bit better. Thank you. I would like to first of all thank the Marshal and his team for inviting us to this conference. It's much appreciated. I think it's something that's very timely, and we appreciate the opportunity to obviously participate. What I'm going to discuss today is the unconventional shale gas exploration, an opportunity for Pomerania, both the community and an environmental outlook. The agenda for my discussion today will be a company profile short, some of the projects that we're currently working on, and also the future plans, what the B&K philosophy is for the local community in terms of communication, environment and operations, and also a summary. The company itself, B&K Petroleum, actually is a Canadian roots company. Once again, it's traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Our head office is in Camarillo, California, where we perform management, exploration, finance, and accounting activities. Our field office in the United States is in Ardmore, Oklahoma, where we have operations ongoing right now in shale gas. And we have strategic business units that have been set up for operational purposes in Warsaw, Poland, Hanover, Germany, and also Madrid, Spain. In project-wise in the USA, B&K Petroleum US, we actually began shale exploration in the year 2005, and we've been able to transfer those activities over to our B&K Polska activities, in particular the technology associated with drilling, hydraulic stimulations, developments, and things of that nature. Other projects ongoing throughout Europe right now. We have activities besides Poland in Germany. There's a concession there. They have concessions in Spain. And we're currently negotiating some French applications that are ongoing in the country of France. In Poland specifically, we have 6 concessions. They're in the Saponis investment areas and also in the Indiana investment areas. And specifically in B&K Polska, we have 3 concessions, Slavno, Slups, and Stargard, in which we have a working interest of 26.76%, which has 798 square kilometers of area. We're fortunate enough to have 3 good partners, Keynes Capital out of Canada, RAG out of Austria, and Sorgina out of Italy. Within the Indiana investments area, we have 3 concessions. The Dolovo, Cherolino, Vitovo, and we have 100% working interest associated with that. Specifically in terms of the activities that are ongoing right now, in 2011 and 2012, we both have in the Saponis and the Indiana area seismic activities going on. And as you can see, they are active in all of these areas, both in the Saponis and in the Indiana concessions. As far as drilling goes, we drilled 3 wells last year. The first well was drilled up here in the Batavino area. We also drilled one in Lavork, and also another one was drilled in the Stargard area. And we actually attempted to hydraulically stimulate the Lavork well. We ran into some technical difficulties, and we've decided to reinvestigate a better way to fracture those wells as we go forward, and we'll be doing a re-stimulation work in 2012. Planned work is we anticipate finishing our 2D seismic over the Saponis and the Indiana concessions over this next year. In particular, in Saponis, we plan to re-stimulate 1 well, which is in the Slups area. It's the number S1. We also are looking at stimulating 2 wells. That would be in the Slavno area and the Stargard area. It'd be the Batavino S1 and the Stargard S1. And we also plan on drilling 2 concession wells in the Slups area and the Stargard area, and here's the 2 names. In the Indiana areas, we got multiple wells which we're looking at drilling. 3 wells in this particular concession. in the Dar Lobo area, Certobolino area, and the Vitov area, and there's the names of those wells. Okay, what is the philosophy that we currently have right now with respect to local community and the various communications associated with it? So associated with that, the first thing is the open opportunities for input, information exchange with the communities, the regulators, and the local authorities. Secondly, we want to become a responsible neighbor while working with local communities as a good partner and citizen. Thirdly, we want to employ and train a local workforce. Also, we want to utilize available local personnel and services, and we want to share advanced industry knowledge. And we also want to sponsor our local communities. So those are our keystones as we go forward. Obviously, we take the local community communication very seriously. As far as the environment goes, we will use environmentally sound industry best practices during all operations. As my colleagues have said on the other industry activities going on, it's always about industry best practices. Secondly, we plan on monitoring continuously the environment to verify that there's no changes associated with that. And thirdly, we want to minimize the interruptions to the local community. We know how important those specialized areas are throughout the areas. As far as the operations goes, we want to use operating areas, small footprints, by optimizing the locations and the drilling of multiple wells from single site pads. And what that basically means is we want to minimize the places where we're actually drilling. We want to promote industry best operating practices and continuous improvement. And we also want to expect the same high company standards from all service providers throughout. And our long-term strategy is to help the country meet the future energy needs, targeted specified emission levels, increase tax revenues, and create good paying jobs for everybody. So in summary, the key messages from our organization and our industry in general is that we do possess the experience and the proven track record to deliver. Secondly, we want to utilize industry best practices, which includes safety and environmental standards. We want to maintain transparency, which we think is extremely important. That's one of the main reasons we're here today, to talk about this with the local communities. And I think one of the most important messages is that shale gas is safe. Thank you very much.
Dziękuję bardzo za to wystąpienie. Kelly Bresger, BNK Polska. No i jeszcze zostały nam dwie osoby, przedstawiciele dwóch koncesjonariuszy. Teraz o zabranie głosu poproszę pana Aldo Napolitano, Eni Polska, spółka z ograniczoną odpowiedzialnością.
Thank you very much. I will try to give you shortly a presentation about who is ENI and what is the current activity, so what we are doing in the region. I think it's something that the local authorities of the areas where we're working really knows quite well, but we'll share with you quickly. And I also tried to, thank you, to differentiate from what the other predecessors actually were saying, so trying to add something to the debate. So, because the risk in these occasions also is to always to say more or less the same things. So I will try to give you a quick look at what it is the evolution of a shale gas project in the future. So to give you also our view of what could be actually the timing of this kind of project and of the production in the future in case of success. This is because what we see in the country is that there's quite a large expectation that everything will come very shortly. Actually, there are some phases in the project that need to be followed. And as we will see, actually, the conclusion is that there will be the need of a joint effort actually to create all the factors that will make a project successful and sustainable for the country. First of all, who is ENI? It's quite a large company. It is an integrated company, so working in the upstream, so exploration and production, what we are talking about today, but also in the gas transportation and midstream, in the refining sector, in the engineering and construction, in the transportation of gas. So that's also the reason why we try to see the projects as a whole, so from the beginning up to the end. In terms of exploration and production, we are working not only in Poland, of course, but in more than 40 countries. In 16 of these countries, we are working with just exploration activities like in Poland. So, where are we working now in the Pomerania region? We are working in 3 concessions. Actually, 2 of these, the 2 westernmost, so those called Malbork and Elbląg, are for the most part within the Pomerania region, while the eastern concession is outside of Pomerania. In terms of location, and if we compare to the position of the Natura 2000 areas, these blocks are located in a good position, so they are part very small portion. We do not have a Natura 2000 areas within the blocks. So hopefully most part of these areas will be workable, of course with the limitations that will be indicated case by case. What we are doing now, we are a little bit behind other companies in terms of activity. We have not drilled yet, but we are very close to start. Actually, we hope that in a matter of 12 days we will be ready to start the first well. It will be in the concession of Elbląg. Actually, we are going to employ 2 drilling rigs. So the first well will start so now in December, and the second rig very likely will start working during January. And we will continue working then back to back, so the other 2 wells will follow immediately after. So we'll be working here in the region from December up to probably April or May, just with the very first exploration campaign, so vertical wells, more or less at the depth that we have seen already for the other companies, same targets, very conventional operations for the time being. And based on the information that we collect, the plan is then to continue with an appraisal phase, so having the permission to drill the horizontal or lateral, so horizontal drains, and making so the multifracturing and testing, and hopefully to demonstrate the possibility to produce gas. So still next year, so if we manage. For the time being, so we have dedicated our effort to mainly to the site preparations. As other speakers said, also we try to have the highest standard also in this phase. So the area of the locations is entirely isolated, so the subsurface of these areas are entirely isolated from the surface in order to prevent any possibility of pollution. All the waters that will actually flow above these locations that are quite small, as you have seen in pictures from other speakers, will be actually collected. There will be no possibility of any surface pollution. And for what concerns the wells, we said already, several speakers said already, so the best practices that will be employed consider the full isolation of the aquifers in the initial part of the wells through casing and cementation, using of muds that are water-based and so on. Particular focus has been made also and will be made during the operation on safety. And we hope that to show that everything can run very smoothly. And as other speakers said already, so the work will last actually just a couple of months per location in terms of presence of rig. Then if we will come back in order to test the wells, it will be another month or two of works only. So very quickly, actually, I mentioned at the beginning, I will talk about factors that are necessary to make a project successful. And we will not go through the geology, but I think it is necessary to remind everybody that we are still in a very early exploration phase, where all the companies are taking the risk actually without knowing what will be the final result. And there will be a certain timing necessary for having actually really commercial results, hopefully. So first of all, we have to remind that even though we, here in the Pomerania region, we have quite well-defined targets in terms of shale that can be potentially shale gas, not necessarily all the shales can be actually shale gas or can produce commercially. This is because there's always the need of a very complex combination of factors. I don't know if there's any geologist in the room, but in any case, we are talking about quantity and nature of organic material, the maturity, so the heat that this material has, so the degree of transformation of this material into hydrocarbons, the mineralogical composition, so the possibility to be actually fracked, the presence of natural fractures and the type and nature of this natural fracture system in the rocks, absence of producible water within the targets, a favorable stratigraphy, so combination of lithologies, simple structural, so a complex configuration that is actually the target of our exploration is what we are looking for. In terms of lateral distribution, again, not everywhere these shales will be good enough to have a commercial production. So the exploration that is ongoing is also looking at studying the local variability of these shales. So understanding what has been the geological evolution in terms of original deposition and then evolution after the burial. This will mean that the commercial production will not occur everywhere. Just to give you a short, very qualitative examples, inside an ideal basin we can have the deposition of shales, but in some parts of the shale maybe there will be not very much shales, intermediate situations. Very likely the organic matter that is so important to create the gas will occur just in portions of this basin that have what are the conditions to have this. There will be intermediate situation. So at the very end of the story there will be just a portion or a stripe of the basin that will actually be good for production and that will actually be able to give a commercial production. I'm saying this because it is important in our opinion also to manage the expectations. The region is quite large, but we don't know yet what will be the result of the exploration. It's not only the geology, of course, then there's the technology. It has been mentioned already several times. Now everybody knows that there's the need of horizontal drilling, hydraulic fracturing in order to produce the gas from the shales. But it is also important how then these technologies are applied. There's the need every time of the right mix of sand, water and additives in order to get a good results. And unfortunately every shale, every new basin is behaving in a different way. So we cannot apply simply what we have learned, for example, in the US in some basins, coming here and doing exactly the same thing. So there will be the need also of a learning phase. And I think the results that the operators are starting to have are extremely good, are proving that gas can be produced, but it is still too early to say it can be actually produced commercially. So there's still a lot to do also in terms of learning how to apply these technologies to the particular shale that are present here in Pomerania. It's not only that, there's the need also of an overall efficiency of the system. This is a task for all the operators, but as we will see, not only of the operators, so of the entire system. Efficiency in terms of time and cost. This has been actually the key of the success in the US, for the US and Canada, for the gas shales. Somebody else already said that it would be quite difficult to have the same range of cost that are present in the US here in Europe for several reasons. Timing that allows you, if you have a continuous run of operations, you can have economy of scale. This will be possible only if the full system is working also in terms of permitting, for allowing the operators that of course need to do everything properly, following the best practices, but they need to be in a position to do this one well after the other. So there will be the need also an efficient permitting process. These projects are unconventional, so in terms of project management, they're completely out of the conventional schemes. The level of production of every single well, I'm entering into something that usually is not shown because it's a little bit technical, but the production from all the wells will be relatively low compared to quite low compared to the production level will be quite low compared to the conventional wells. It's not only that, the production in a single well will decline very quickly, and then will stabilize on quite a low production at low pressure. So in order to keep a constant level of production, that is what every buyer of gas will require to an operator, there will be the need always of fully develop the area, the concession, through a continuous activity of drilling and tie-in of the wells. Otherwise, there will not be the possibility to actually satisfy the market. So it will be unconventional, the development, also because the surface facilities will be distributed on a large territory. However, on the positive side, they are quite small and almost not visible and relatively simple. There will be the need of a flexible management of this project, because a lot of this learning phase will continue during the development, and the operator will understand how to improve the efficiency while drilling. So this is quite an important thing also in terms of regulations and permitting, because in this type of projects it's quite impossible to foresee everything since the beginning. So a certain degree of flexibility there will be the need, I think, of considering some possibility of flexibility also in the permitting process, and of course it could be an open debate to see how. Finally, so it is a capital-intensive, very capital-intensive way of operating, because you need to continue drilling for a long time. And this is something, what I'm adding now is something that probably not many actually have already understood, I think, in the public opinion, that it is a low profit margin activity. The large profit that can be envisaged are due only by the scale. So the scale of the reserves, the scale of the activity of the production that can be reached. But as individual wells, the profit margin will be extremely low, and it can be reached only if there's a very good efficiency in terms of time and cost given by the operators. So that's the reason why I was saying there will be the need of a combined effort of all the components, not just by the oil companies. Because otherwise the risk is that there will be actually no production at all. So I'm trying to go quickly, but so it's an unconventional also management of the risk, because the current exploration tools that we are using are not able to predict what we indicated at the very beginning, so the so-called sweet spots. So the area where actually you can have the right combination for having a good commercial production of gas. So the learning is done also by drilling, unfortunately. And this requires so that we exit from the conventional scheme of exploration, appraisal, then there's the creation of a project, the final investment decision, all the permitting, and so there's the development. Actually, usually in the unconventional projects, there's the need to pass through a pilot phase. So there's the exploration, appraisal, what we are living today, but then very likely there will be a phase for all the operators in which, at a relatively small case, there will be a long production test in order to understand how to optimize and reach the efficiency that is required for the development. I'm saying this because this is something that, of course, is not included in any regulation in Europe. It is totally out of the conventional schemes. So how to manage the pilot phase, it can be also another issue. It can be done, in my opinion, but it is something new. This is just an example also of how it can work, the activity, the small symbols in what would like to be the shape of a license are the exploration wells, so vertical wells, short horizontals for testing. At the same time, so we could reach a phase in which we start having pilot and pilot production. Then maybe there could be, this is the classical way of progressing, for example, of the project in the US. How to apply in large licenses here in Europe can be another issue. There will be the start of development and production, but at the same time, exploration, has started and is going on together with appraisal in another part of the license, for example. And this could be the situation. Of course, how to manage design conventional scheme in conventional regulations can be another issue. So there are a lot of external factors of success. It's not only geology, it's not only the work of the operator, of the company, even though this is extremely important. Of course, the organization of the operator has to be very slim, very effective, so low cost, but at the same time so good to apply all the best practices, all the regulations, all the environmental restrictions. However, at the same time, there will be the need of infrastructures, so an infrastructure network. This has been actually another key factor of success in the US, interconnected system, very easily accessible. So there will be the need of investments also on the infrastructures. Logistics, there's the need of access to the areas in a compatible way with the territory, with the needs of the communities. There's the need to, of course, to manage the issue of the water. So water availability and management is a factor. Regulation, as we said already. A commercial environment that has to be favorable. And just last point, just because it's useful to go to the next slide, is actually also the people acceptance and forms of tangible return for the territory. This is probably obvious, but it's important not to forget it. So how to mitigate the work that we could do to develop the area. It has been, I'll go very quickly because it has been already mentioned. So cluster drilling, minimizing the impact on the surface, so a large development in subsurface, but very small areas used with multipaths at the surface, landscaping, rapid restoration, reduction of and planning of the traffic, and of course strict application of all the best practices. I think it's interesting the picture of the cyclist there. This is actually a picture of an area where we are producing gas, shale gas in Texas. I can assure you that unless you go to a few tens of meters of the areas, you don't see that gas is produced. So there are several issues to take into account. So water use, it has been mentioned, but I will mention again that it is important to identify very early all the possible alternative water sources and to have an integrated water management program all along the full cycle. So recycling would be here in Europe, I guess, the main thing, the main target for all the operators. At the same time, there's the need, we think, also of a good communication. Good communication to avoid misunderstanding, to avoid that myth that goes through internet and actually propagated without any scientific basis. And together with this, so we think the application of all the health and safety and environmental best practices, environmental impact assessment studies before all the development of all the operations, in particular development operations, of course, as due also by the EU regulations. Communication, we said, favoring the job creation opportunity, the opportunity for job creations, and with return also for the region, for the people. So just as a summary, so need a combined effort, I think it was, so we are fully available to give as much as possible transparency on what we do, to try to have the better contact with the local communities as much as we can, but I think that the effort has to be from all the parties, from regional, central regional authorities, local authorities, and the industry as a whole. Thank you.
Dziękuję bardzo, to był pan Aldo Napolitano i przed nami jeszcze jedna ostatnia prezentacja Marathon Oil Company, Marathon Petroleum Poland Services i pan Karl Uwaga. Bardzo proszę.
Szanowni Państwo, drodzy goście, dzień dobry. Nazywam się Karol Uwaga, jestem dyrektorem Marathon Oil Polska. Chciałbym podziękować za zaproszenie na tą konferencję. Zapraszam, że będę mówić po angielsku, ale mówię polski nie jest jeszcze bardzo dobrze. Marathon has over 120 years experience, and it's an American company in doing safe exploration and production work. We are a very financially sound company, and we have extensive experience in exploration and production in natural gas from shale. Marathon also operates all over the world, as you can see from this exhibit. We operate in Indonesia, Libya, West Africa, Aberdeen, Scotland, Norway, and now here in Poland, as well as in Canada, and extensive operations in the United States. Before coming to Poland, I worked for 3 years overseeing Marathon's unconventional resource plays in the United States. Marathon holds 11 concessions in Poland that cover 9,300 square kilometers. We produce, like everybody else says, we'll be drilling anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 meters deep. And we will always obey and act according to the local laws and regulations in the areas developed. As you can see, of our 11 concessions, we only operate one in the Pomorskiem region, the cz. Our plans are to shoot seismic work, which we're about 50% complete through the cz concession right now. And then we hope to be done by the middle of January, and then we will start drilling hopefully sometime in the middle of next year. One of the reasons why I've worked for Marathon for 32 years is because of the type of company it is and the principles that we follow. One is in the area of health and safety. We have a very high regard for the health and safety of the people who work for us and of the people in and around the communities where we work. We also are committed to minimizing environmental impact by reducing waste, emissions, and other releases. One of the things that is a saying we have in Marathon is we want no one to get hurt on our locations who work for us, and we want to have no spills to the environment. That's a stated goal on every well we drill. And we've worked very hard to do that, and we have a very good track record around the world of being able to do so. Another thing that's very important to Marathon is upholding high standards for business ethics and integrity, making sure we follow strict principles of corporate governance and support transparency in all our operations. For 2 years, Marathon has been meeting with national and local officials and community members and local landowners before we've even drilled our first well. Dziękuję za Państwa uwagę.
A my dziękujemy Panu za język polski. Dziękuję bardzo. Szanowni Państwo, i w ten sposób przechodzimy do tej części, myślę, również niezwykle interesującej, do części, w której będę zadawał w Państwa imieniu Państwa pytania. Tak jak mówiliśmy, one są wszystkie na tych formularzach. Zaczniemy może od Pani Hanny Dzikowskiej. Taka była właśnie prośba Pani Hanny Dzikowskiej, żeby od niej zacząć. I pierwsze pytanie od Pana Michała Bagniewskiego. Czy planowane są badania pomiarowe tła emisji naturalnej gazu do wód i powietrza poprzedzające eksploatację złóż gazu z łupków? Jeśli tak, to kto je będzie wykonywał i na czyje zlecenie? Jeszcze umówmy się w kwestii formalnej, ja będę cytował te pytania po prostu dosłownie tak, jak zostały zadane. Bardzo proszę, Pani Dyrektor. I też prośba o w miarę krótkie odpowiedzi, bo pytań jest sporo, chciałbym, żebyśmy wszystkie zdążyli zadać.
Zarówno po emisji gazu, jak podstawowe badania wymienione z odwiertów, na przykład w studniach, ujęć wody. Takie obowiązki są nałożone na inwestora w decyzji środowiskowej. A następnie po zakończeniu robót przeprowadzenie badań porealizacyjnych, tak żeby można było wykazać ewentualne oddziaływanie w trakcie robót, no i podjąć odpowiednie działania, bądź w trakcie kontroli przez wieś.
To pytanie zadał Pan Michał Bagniewski. I jest też kolejna seria pytań do Pani. Jak można stracić ile można stracić wydobywając gaz łupkowy, ile można zyskać wydobywając gaz łupkowy?
Ja myślę, że to nie jest pytanie do mnie, raczej do i polityków, i do ekonomistów ewentualnie, bądź tych, którzy przymierzają się do tego biznesu, czyli do przedstawicieli firm, które prowadzą badania.
A co należy zrobić, żeby było bezpiecznie dla Polski, Polaków, dla środowiska?
Należy stosować te przepisy, które u nas obowiązują, bo one są wystarczające. Natomiast trzeba przyłożyć odpowiednio rzetelne uwarunkowania i zweryfikować dokumentacje, które do nas będą wpływały.
Jakie warunki są konieczne, żeby się udało? To rozumiem, że w części Pani już teraz odpowiedziała na to pytanie.
To zależy, czy ma się to udać po prostu tylko przedsiębiorcy, czy ma się to udać nam wszystkim.
Ja myślę, że chodzi o to, żeby było bezpiecznie dla Polski, Polaków i dla środowiska.
No, żeby było bezpiecznie, to na pewno trzeba uwzględnić wszystkie uwarunkowania środowiskowe wynikające z przepisów, ale również ze staranności prowadzenia prac. Również prawo geologiczne daje bardzo wiele takich elementów, które są podstawą do zachowania bezpieczeństwa. Między innymi projekt prac geologicznych za każdym razem musi być wykonywany i zatwierdzany przez Urząd Górniczy i tam też znajdują się elementy i środowiskowe, i eksploatacyjne, które wiążą się z bezpieczeństwem, a później jest kwestia nadzoru tego. Również przez Urząd Górniczy, jak też przez Wojewódzkiego Inspektora Ochrony Środowiska.
Pytanie dotyczące, nie wiem czy dokładnie do Pani, ale to jest, Pani jest zaadresowana, znaczy jest Pani adresatem tego pytania, to są w ogóle pytania Pana Jacka Urbana z naszej Gdyni. Czy warto zainwestować we własną technologię? Czy potrafimy to zrobić?
Technologie głównie wierzchnicze to są ogólnodostępne i one są znane i w Polsce, i w świecie. Natomiast jeśli chodzi o technologię szczelinowania, to jest ona głównie wypróbowana i doświadczona na terenie Stanów Zjednoczonych. A z uwagi na to, że są to technologie bardzo drogie, to nie wiem, czy szybko dojdziemy do własnych technologii. Myślę, że warto korzystać tak jak inni. Właściwie z doświadczeń kilku podstawowych firm na świecie, to jest Schlumberger, Halliburton, no i może jeszcze kilka innych na palcach jednej ręki można wyliczyć.
No i kończąc te pytania, to 10 pytań w sumie od Pana Jacka Urbana. Czy chcemy to zrobić, czy to nam się opłaca? I myślę, że to już w części też Pani przed chwilą powiedziała, że jak rozumiem, warto korzystać z doświadczeń, tak?
Na pewno
czy sami powinniśmy
z
zacząć?
doświadczeń, na pewno pod warunkiem zapewnienia wszystkich uwarunkowań środowiskowych może nam się to opłacać. Jeśli będzie się to opłacało jako biznes dla firm, to z pewnością opłaci się to również i nam z uwagi na bardzo duże oprzyrządowanie społeczno, powiedziałabym, serwisowe, czyli że u nas powstaną firmy, które będą świadczyły serwis dla firm wydobywczych i również powstanie przemysł i sposoby wykorzystania gazu, które będą jak gdyby takim przemysłem okalającym samo wydobycie, bo przecież trzeba będzie odebrać ten gaz, oczyścić go, przetransportować, te wszystkie elementy trzeba będzie wybudować i nikt nam tego nie zrobi, zrobimy to sami własnymi siłami.
I pytania do Pani od Pana Dariusza Majkowskiego z Zrzeszenia Kaszubsko-Pomorskie. Czy pomorscy wójtowie, burmistrzowie są odpowiednio przygotowani, aby bronić interesów swoich mieszkańców w starciu z firmami poszukującymi gazu? Czy po przekazaniu, ile dobrze odczytuję, decyzji 19 samorządów, o której Pani mówiła w swoim wystąpieniu, nastąpiła z ich strony jakakolwiek reakcja?
Prawdę mówiąc, z własnej inicjatywy to się żaden burmistrz ani wójt do mnie nie zgłosił na jakiekolwiek konsultacje, ale myślę, że po tych spotkaniach, czy choćby dzisiejszym, może panowie i panie wójtowie będą chcieli bardziej zgłębiać dokumenty, którymi dysponują. Może będą chcieli bardziej ofensywnie pomyśleć o jakichś programach w swoich gminach przygotowujących gminy do wejścia tego przemysłu i wówczas myślę, że będzie więcej rozmów na ten temat.
I jeszcze jedno pytanie do Pani. Czy urzędnicy w starostwach powiatowych wiedzą Pani zdaniem, na co zwracać uwagę, wydając pozwolenia wodnoprawne firmom poszukującym gazozłupków, czy na przykład nie jest im potrzebne jakieś szkolenie w tym zakresie?
Szkolenie potrzebne jest wszystkim. I w gminach, i w starostwach, i w regionalnej dyrekcji, bo na razie w Regionalnej Dyrekcji Ochrony Środowiska to główną wiedzę posiadam ja i kilku pracowników, którzy do tej pory zajmowali się tymi decyzjami, ale ten przemysł jest coraz bardziej się otwiera, coraz więcej nowych informacji i wszyscy powinniśmy się szkolić albo być szkoleni i myślę, że takie programy będą powstawały.
Dziękuję Pani bardzo. Kolejne pytania, tym razem pytania zadane przez Pana Tomasza Brzoskowskiego, wójta gminy Stężyca. To są adresatami tych pytań jest Ministerstwo Gospodarki, Pani Sylwia Sikora, IBNK Polska, Pan Kelly Brezer. Jakie substancje będą stosowane podczas szczelinowania oraz jaki jest ich dokładnie skład? Uznajemy, że wiemy?